Hey guys, and welcome back to our Star Wars Resistance recap show, Viva la Resistance. And here today we are talking about, honestly, back to being where the show is just getting better and better and better, and now we have arguably the best episode yet of the entire season, the Doza Dilemma. I'm, of course, Chris Doman. I'm hosting this week along with last week's host, Nico Rigoli, as well as my usual co-host, Kees. Gentlemen, let's break this down, but first, Nico, what are your initial thoughts coming off of this latest episode?
My initial thoughts are that for the longest time, we were asking about certain choices certain characters were going to make, and now it's gotten to a point where some of those choices have kind of been made for them by other people and other circumstances.
That's a great point, and we're going to get more into that here in a moment, but Kees, your initial thoughts.
Called it. Just want to say, called it.
You did call it. This was a while back. Oh gosh, this would have been about, I don't know.
We already knew, as we get to the end order, but this was a very heavy first order episode, which I predicted, I think last week. Like, we're gonna get more of that, and I was very happy.
Yeah, and I thought for sure that the first order was gonna be a little forceful in regards to how they were gonna have a presence on the platform. And again, just like Kees, I've been saying this for months now, but I didn't think it was gonna happen this quickly in the second half of the season, because we still have like another, I don't know, like 6-7 episodes before the end of the season. So now this is just going to get even more interesting. So let's start breaking this down from the top. First things first. First order of business, gentlemen. There's a hole in my ship. I do not want a hole in my ship. Because...
He's talking about a relationship.
Yes. And I'm worried. I'm very worried. Because
you're right now you're Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl. Stop blowing holes in my ship.
Yes, because there's starting to become some tension between Kaz and Synara, who essentially are the two stars of this episode. Because as there
are a lot of stars in this episode.
Technically, but if we're going to say like who gets the most focus, one can make the argument that it's both Kaz and Synara, especially because now she's starting to feel like someone might be onto her, and this is just great as or it's not great because now she's starting to get included in the inner circle, because one of the first things that happens is everyone's hanging out at Aunt Z's. She walks in, stops by for a drink, and there's Tam and Torra playing that stupid darts game from the first episode. And they all invite, Torra invites everybody back to her place in the tower for, to play this another game, which I thought was a fun callback to that little flight simulator thing for a couple episodes back. But as this is happening,
yeah, it's more looking like a Kazara instead of Kazora.
Well, and when we get to the ending, that might not be the case. The ending of this episode, I mean, but like I can see at least early on in the episode where you might think that that you are having that Jack Sparrow, there are holes in my ship moment.
Again, can you blame me? Because I'm the guy who just loves to ship things, and then I don't want it to stray away from the ship. So let's actually get a little more into this. So I actually kind of like how Synara is beginning to feel a little more secluded, left out of the loop as far as Kragan's plans go, because nobody told her that the plan was to kidnap Torra. as part of them getting triple their rate for continuing the attacks.
Yeah.
Which, that was something I found really fascinating.
Oh, and besides the fact that nobody told her about the target being Torra, it's also like Synara, like Torra is just very nice, and Torra invites Synara, who she hasn't really met up until this episode. This episode, we kind of see them together for the first time in the entire show, I think. Like, Torra is nice enough to invite her into her home to actually give her a lot of like nice little things, especially the clearance code, which is of course the most important. And I think that, like, yeah, you see it throughout the episode, and we've been seeing it since Synara landed on the Colossus. She feels guilty of what she's doing. She doesn't like what she's doing because she doesn't believe that it's right, which is fair. And I mean, I've been saying it for a while. She's the callous of this show. She's going to turn. We know it. The question is when. I'm very interested in when that will happen, because it might happen before the end of the season. Like, we know towards the end of the season the Colossus is probably going to be destroyed. And when that happens, I think that she's just going to be like, no, I'm not working for the Pirates anymore. I'm joining Kees and his crew because they're actually nice people. Because that's what she is realizing, that she doesn't want to be a pirate. She wants to be a nice person, and she is surrounded by nice people who are nice to her, so she likes that. So I'm very interested to see how that goes.
Nico?
I'm still a little tired because I'm only like 24 hours away removed from having gotten off a plane and gotten back home. But yeah, to piggyback off of what Kees just said, hell, the turn could come like next week, because we didn't expect the First Order to establish their presence officially on the Colossus this quick into the second half of the season, and now already here we are. As we again, I'm kind of foreshadowing what happened at the end of this episode, and I'm sorry if I'm moving ahead too much, but yeah, for all we know, like, the official turn could come next week. Like, she could, like, Kaz could rat her out, and then she could be like, no, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this anymore. And then he's like, prove it. And then she actually proves it. Like, that could be a thing that happens next week. I don't know. But yeah, she definitely has a moral compass, and she's definitely feeling the weight of not following that compass pushing her down, and she wants that relief, and she's just not sure what to do. And right now, I guess you could say, like, this is a very weird analogy to make, but I remember the first season of The Celebrity Apprentice, and Vinny Pastore was a contestant on that season, and he was on the men's team, and then he kind of starts working for the women's team on like episode 5 of that season, and then also in that episode, like, he becomes a puppet being used by both teams, and then at the end of the episode, he has nowhere to go, and he basically resigns from the show. So, like, in a sense, Synara is kind of a pirate without a country right now. She's trying to figure out where she belongs, and, like, she's leaning towards Kaz and friends, but she's not sure if they'll accept her once they know the truth. And so that's where she is right now.
Ooh, see, now that's a fair point. Especially considering I just want to hear Kragan just say something to the effect of, "You're fired, Synara." Presidential humor, isn't it a wonderful thing? But we're not here to talk politics. We're here to just keep diving into this episode, and something that Kees brought up right away, which was how much the First Order was in this episode. I mean, it started on Star Killer Base.
Yes.
That made me so happy.
I remember when I queued up the episode to watch it with my girlfriend, and I was like, okay, queued, and I see the opening shot, and I'm like, yes, all the yes, watch the opening, and she was like, what are you talking about? Watch the opening shot, all the yes. Yeah, it starts with Starkiller. We see Kylo Ren's shuttle essentially throughout this episode, and it was
which I'm starting to think they now just have multiple of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
Just-
the new. I guess you could say
it's,
that's
it's
the
for
new
high-ranking
Imperial.
officers.
Yeah.
Like Palpatine had that Imperial shuttle that looked like that had the three things going for him, and now this is basically the First Order's version of that ship.
Yeah.
Except instead of a 3-pronged Lambda shuttle, now it's just that stupid V thing that, I'll be honest, guys, I'm not a fan of it. But that's neither here nor there. And Major, what's his nuts? I can't remember his name to save my life.
Von Rag?
The red guy or the gold guy?
Yeah, Major Von Rag. Okay. Thank you, Case. Thank you, Mr. Cannon. It's greatly appreciated. No, and it was interesting seeing more of him and seeing how manipulative he actually can kind of be. Because for a hot second, I was fooled into thinking that, oh, so the First Order are now just gonna take Torra, and they're going to take the money and they're not going to pay them at all, which will cause, I don't know, maybe the pirates just freak out on everybody and go after whoever they can. But instead it's just, sort of a typical, oh, now we're going to double cross you and then we're going to take Torra. I'm not sure. Like, I understand why for the execution. I just don't know if I necessarily like the exact execution of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and because you mentioned this last week when I was hosting, and that's that you said this: the difference between the Empire and the First Order is that the Empire had an image to uphold, whereas the First Order didn't really give that much of a crap about public relations and how they looked in the eyes of the rest of the galaxy. And now here they are doing a double cross with pirates and making themselves look good in the eyes of Captain Doza. Like, hey, we can actually be that helpful service that you need to protect the ship. We only have your best interest at heart. Wink, wink, not really.
That's wink, wink.
But you get what I mean. So yeah, it's interesting because, like, now we're kind of going back to the old school stuff in which, like, the First Order has taken a page out of the very old Republic playbook. Well, not Old Republic as in the game, but Old Republic as in, like, original trilogy when the Republic was on its last legs. That's what they're going for here.
Yeah, the First Order, like what they've been doing, they've been making these schemes with the pirates, and it's all just like a disguise essentially, because they use the pirates to make the First Order look better, because that's what they've been doing. Like, they use the pirates to make sure that the First Order can then step in and save the day, because the First Order wants their presence. However, the moment that we get there, we know that it's going to be bad.
I was going to say, so it's Palpatine and Dooku.
Yeah.
Dance, puppets, dance.
Yeah.
Dance.
So the question really is, when will Doza finally make that decision to have the First Order on the Colossus to protect them? And because at that point, it's going to hit the fan. It's going to hit it hard. And yeah, I'm very curious to see when that happens.
I was going to say, though, but sorry, Nico, go ahead.
Well, I think you're about to say the same thing I'm about to say, which is, I feel like the choice, the decision has already been made for Captain Doza. Like that manipulative major, he established his presence by giving him just a small platoon of ships, but a small platoon can do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. Like all it takes is, like, you bring in one bug and it multiplies, and that's essentially what I think is going to happen here. Is that the seed has been planted? Now we just wait for the tree to sprout and sink the Colossus into the ocean.
And I was about to say, so to piggyback out of that for just 2 seconds, like, so all those shots that we saw in the mid-season trailer, I don't think Doze is going to actually make a decision, but we're just going to go based off of, like, all the trailer shots that we saw, they're just from the soldiers that are now left behind here. Mm-hmm. And then, like, so they'll sort of essentially just be free guards / spies for the First Order. And then once it's time for some shop to be wrecked, that's when Doze is going to be like, no, get your troops off my platform, and then they'll be like, well, too bad. Troops, fire on him. And then all hell is going to break loose.
Well, I'm looking at the title of the next episode. It's called The First Order Occupation. So,
well, there's your answer. There's your answer.
Yes. So this is going to be a fun time, which I'm glad that we're finally over the quote-unquote filler side of things where we had, Bebo. It was what it was.
Look. We've had some episodes where they focused more on just setting up the characters rather than continuing the plot, which is fine because this is season 1 and you need to establish who these characters are and what they do. But now that we know who these characters are, at least some of them, there's a big mystery around Yeager and Doza, but that's okay because I assume that we'll get an answer to that at one point. But now they're really getting into it with the First Order, and that's just the most interesting thing about the show. I mean, it's called Resistance, and you know that the First Order is there, and I just want to see Resistance versus First Order now. We're going to get it, especially considering the title of the next episode, so I'm extremely excited for the next episodes to come.
Absolutely, and that sounds like a good place to start our final thoughts. I mean, I don't know if you could really explain that any better. Nico, did you have any final thoughts on this episode?
For one, I just want to mention something that I'm surprised no one else has mentioned. There was an actual pirate ship in this episode, and not one that was floating in space, just a simple junker. No, an actual pirate ship. How cool is that? How cool is that? I just love that so much. But in terms of the episode and where I see things going in the future, now that the choice has essentially been made for Doza, I feel like we are going to sort of witness his own Cassian Andor style story. We know Cassian Andor, he was a separatist, and then the way things played out in the galaxy, it kind of put him in the position where he had to be a rebel. And now I feel like in terms of Captain Doza, he was an Imperial officer, and now the seeds are being planted in which circumstances are going to sort of force him to join the Resistance to protect his family, to protect the Colossus, to protect everyone on there from his own bad decisions.
And then the stormtroopers are going to shoot him, and that's that.
Yeah, listen,
maybe.
As I've said it, if I've said it, I'll say it 100 more times. Doza, we hardly knew ye. You're not going to live past the end of this season. Yeager, I hope he can at least get to season 2.
To be fair, we haven't seen a whole lot of Yeager in these past couple of episodes, so I think that either he is going to get more screen time in the next episodes, or he will live on to the next season.
Exactly. So it's going to be one of those two, but dear Captain Doza, I'm currently starting my first draft of your eulogy right now. But for my final thoughts, I really enjoyed this episode. This is just like how I was wanting better and better episodes from the first half of the season, and now we're finally back into the swing of things. And to put it simply, this is answering questions, and it's giving me more questions, and it's the questions that I want answered, minus ones involving a certain ship that the writers seem to be okay with, but I'm certainly not. Actually,
Kazora or Kasara.
But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Viva la Resistance. Obviously, next week, we'll be back as always with Kees in the hosting chair. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. This is going to be a fun one because now we're ramping up. We're getting ready for that all-out brawl between the First Order and the Resistance. And I cannot wait to get to Starkiller Base because we're getting closer. But until we get there, Kees, where can the good folks find you online?
You can find me at Dutch Movie Guy on Twitter, Kees on Facebook, competing in multiplex matches that I should not be in or should be in. I don't know. For some reason, I managed to beat Nico, and I still don't know how the that
Shut
happened.
up. Just shut up.
Hey,
now, please.
You keep rubbing in our faces that you went to New York. I can do this. Because, for some reason, I'm in the final of the TV fandom tournament, and I am competing with Chris against the Arkham Knights soon in movie fandom. So I wonder when they'll drop that. Just like my TV matches, they'll drop it. Just look out for it. I don't know when. That's it.
Fair enough. And Nico, now that you've had your awesome big week, I saw you raise about $5,400. So, dude, congratulations. But where can the good folks find you online?
You can find me napping after the long-ass month I've had, doing a whole bunch of things, raising apparently more money than any individual Penn State New Kensington student ever has before, apparently. And also recovering from my New York Schmodown trip, which, by the way, when you see it on Friday, you're going to love every minute of it. I promise you that. But in terms of where you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Nico Suave Regoli. That's NicoSuaveRegoli. Later on today, I'll have a video on the YouTube channel about the status of my trivia career and where I go from here. You can find me here on Dedicated to Art, doing Resistance reviews, doing Schmodown reactions, probably this one on Friday, which will be weird because I'll be there and here at the same time. You can find me over on the new Combat Wrestling Network channel on YouTube, where there will be wrestling trivia and a bunch of other wrestling-related content with Hunter Chambliss and Harley Bork. And Multiplex Entertainment, that's the name of the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. The Twitter is at MultiplexYT. The Instagram is Multiplex Entertainment Network. The T-Bug is just Multiplex Buyer Awesome Shirts. And even though the Trivia for Thon is over, the link is still up, so donate, because the link will still be up for donations until Thon officially starts, I'd say, February 16th. So keep donating, and we can still break that $6,000 goal.
Absolutely. Only $600 left to go, guys. Let's help him make it happen. But you guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Stardust, and Letterboxd at Skywalker Dome. And you guys can follow this very channel on Twitter and Instagram at D2A Channel. Please like our Facebook page. You can find a new track that I'll be releasing on my personal YouTube page. An old song of mine that I wrote back in high school. I decided to give it a little bit of a revamp. I decided to lay down some vocal tracks finally. And I will be giving that a drop for any hard rock and metal lovers to give a listen to. So, until then.
Oh, wait. One thing. Like the video, comment on it, and subscribe to the channel. We haven't said that yet.
Yes, guys. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe. And, share the link. Share this video, because it would be our immense pleasure to sit down with, whether it's Justin Page, one of the executive producers, Christopher Sean, the voice actor of Kazuto Ziono, any of the cast
or crew
who work on this wonderful show that we all love. That's the goal. It's one of the many goals we have for 2019. So we need you guys to help make that happen. But until we get to that point, Viva la Resistance!
And may the Force be with you always.
Yeah!